Israel's ruling coalition government just suffered a body blow, a devastating one, the second one this week alone. The ultra Orthodox Shah's party officially quit Netanyahu's government yesterday following United Torah Judaism's exit, another ultra Orthodox Jewish party, earlier this week. This isn't small news, by the way, in Israel. It's a sizable shift that leaves Netanyahu's government with a minority, with just 50 out of the 120 Knesset parliamentary seats. Imagine trying to run a company but being a minority shareholder. Control is tough. Want to pass legislation? You need the opposition, who usually oppose you, to side with you to pass any bills. It's government standstill, best case scenario, government collapse, worst case scenario. Worst case scenario for the Israeli state, I suppose. Best case scenario if you're, let's say, a different nation. Anyway, here's what's really happening behind the scenes. Why did these two ultra orthodox Jewish parties abandon Netanyahu's government this week? The crisis erupted, you see, from military conscription laws on ultra orthodox Jewish men who've enjoyed decades of exemption while secular Israelis bear the military burden. Those men, Hasidic Jews, just didn't have to serve in the Israeli military. The rest of Israeli society, by and large, have to serve in the Israeli military. It's mandatory. They have mandatory conscription or military service. So, especially as Gaza's war casualties mount, especially after Iran during the 12 days and reserves currently being deployed in high numbers, meaning the rest of the Israeli economy is struggling for that manpower, reserve soldiers remaining deployed and their families are upset. There's huge public anger in Israel over the exemption for Hasidic Jewish men because they study the Torah and that's it. They don't have to serve. And it's reached a breaking point. Netanyahu's Supreme Court, the judiciary in Israel, ruled very recently that the exemptions are discriminatory. So Hasidic men, best buckle up, put on your boots. You've been served draft notices. Here you go. You open it up. It says, "Bro, you're going to have to serve soz, even if you didn't want to. Pray for us." It doesn't say exactly that, but you get the idea, right? Here's the important bit. If these Knesset parties cannot agree on something in the next couple of days, a compromise with Netanyahu, maybe Netanyahu somehow says, fine, you don't actually have to serve. He needs to find a compromise because the other side's like, no, they better damn serve because our boys are dying in this pointless war you've signed us up for. Best we all die together, right? This is sort of the tension that Netanyahu and his administration face. Um, if they can't come to an agreement, it will just trigger elections, right? I made a post earlier today talking about the first ultra Orthodox Jewish party exiting. This is the second one. This leaves Netanyahu with no majority of government. This minority government scenario, which has become all but a reality now, makes passing legislation, first of all, nearly impossible, potentially paralyzing Israel during, here's the important parts, during critical Gaza ceasefire negotiations, to be honest, that were likely just performative anyway, so that won't really lead anywhere. But more importantly, for example, if Israel Iran round two pops off, or Turkey starts arming Syria, or something else mad happens with Israeli um, government so unstable, prone to collapse, big state decisions are up in the air. Like who's going to make them? Or if Netanyahu makes them, what happened to Israeli democracy? It's already a flawed idea, but even by their own standards, they're messing up, they're slipping up. Now, with the Israeli election scheduled for October 2026, next year, Netanyahu faces a choice: call early elections on his terms or watch his government slowly collapse and fail to pass any sort of legislation that he wants. He basically won't be able to steer the ship properly. The irony: the man who survived every political crisis, Netanyahu, for decades has been saying Iran is 6 months away from a bomb. He's been saying that for the last 20, 30 years. Yet him, resilient, you could say, resilient Netanyahu, Yahoo, whatever, he might end up being undone by his own coalition partners. Sad. Sad. Well, is it sad? I don't know. The question everyone wants to know, of course, is how does this all affect Gaza and Iran and Lebanon and Syria, the region as a whole, basically? The answer, unless we see something very dramatic by one or more actors in the region, government collapse in this sense, internal managed government collapse, political government collapse, not military government collapse in Israel, isn't likely to bring about particular change elsewhere in the Middle East. But if things did pop off during this legislative or administrative chaos in Israel, it might make it harder for Israel to respond optimally, cohesively. Now, the military will still continue operating business as usual, but round two against Iran may be delayed. If Israel was thinking of starting it again, they might think, okay, how about no? Because our administration is currently in crisis and we can't pass any legislation because we have a minority government. For better or worse, it might be the Iran Israel round two might be delayed. Gaza may keep going on for longer with no actual ceasefire. That's not for better or worse. That's straight up for worse, of course, due to the civilian catastrophe that has become. Time will tell how things turn out, and of course, I'll be here to report to you guys the news and the analysis, unbiased and without the Western spin. Thank you for your support. It's not hard. It's not hard. It's not easy doing these videos, doing all the research. I'm extremely enthusiastic and extremely passionate about the news, um, unfiltering it, unspinning it, and then presenting it factually. So I do work hard. Um, Having said that, it's not easy, and I have my ups and downs. So bear with me if there's news that's come out and I haven't covered it yet. And thank you for your support. Some people have talked about Cash App, PayPal, Patreon as a way of financially supporting me. That is something I'm working on. To each according to their ability. If you have the ability and you can actually support me in that way, keep an eye out. I'll be releasing my Patreon at some point, and it will be in the description of my TikTok bio. It'll probably be in the description of my YouTube video, wherever you're watching this. So your support is appreciated. You know, the average Abdullah, the average Joe, like myself, for you, £3, £5, £10 might not be much to just chuck at a person that you care about, whose message you care about, whose efforts you value. But to me, that tenner a month is potentially life changing. If enough people do that, that's potentially me being able to do something like this, focus on research, analysis, geopolitical commentary, bringing you the reality unbiased without the Western spin, touching on topics I just simply don't have time for at the moment. Is it unlocks a new world for me. For example, if I can just do this full time. So thank you in advance, and we'll see where our fate takes us. See you on the next one.